No one spoke. The Hall of Convergence, once a place of shouting alarms and panicked commands, had fallen into a silence so complete it felt unnatural. The only sound was the distant, rhythmic hum of the station's core, steady, patient, indifferent to the history being rewritten within its walls. At the center of the chamber, Varkir the Annihilator remained utterly still. His colossal head rested against the cold metal floor, horns scraping faintly against ancient alloy. The gravitic restraints that once bound him lay shattered and powerless, yet no one dared react. The dragon did not rise. He did not roar. The creature who had shattered empires, who had turned star systems into graves, had bowed. Alien delegates stared in disbelief. Some recorded the moment with trembling appendages. Others simply froze, minds unable to reconcile what their eyes were seeing. Every known law of survival screamed that this should not be happening. And yet it was. Ethan sat cross-legged on the floor before the dragon, his small frame almost lost against the vastness of Varkir's form. He was completely unconcerned by the claws that could tear moons apart, the fangs that had ended civilizations. With a child's simple certainty, he reached out and gently patted the warm obsidian scales near the dragon's brow. They pulsed faintly beneath his touch, alive, responsive. "You don't have to hurt anyone anymore," Ethan said. He didn't shout. He didn't command. He offered. The words echoed through the minds of every being present, carried not by sound but by something deeper, something none of the translation matrices could fully explain. Several delegates felt an unfamiliar tightening in their chests. Others instinctively looked away as if witnessing something too intimate. Varkir's ancient eyes dimmed, not with weakness, not with submission, but with something no archive, no prophecy, no battlefield report had ever recorded: relief. For millennia, Varkir's voice rumbled through thought space, heavy with the weight of ages. I was forged to be wrath. Fragments of memory rippled outward, burning skies, collapsing stars, worlds screaming as they died. Some delegates cried out, overwhelmed by the echoes of destruction. I was commanded by empires who feared one another, the dragon continued. Used as a threat, unleashed as punishment. His claws flexed once, then stilled. I was feared by the galaxy, he said. And in that fear, none ever asked me a question. The dragon's gaze lowered, focusing on the small human before him. They never asked if I wished to stop. Several delegates recoiled as if struck. One dropped to their knees. Another's bioluminescent skin flickered erratically. A weapon that could wish? A monster that could choose? That is not possible, whispered the Kellan ambassador, his voice shaking despite himself. You are annihilation incarnate. You are what you are. Varkir slowly lifted one massive claw. The motion alone should have caused panic, but instead, the dragon moved with impossible care, placing the claw back on the floor a safe distance from Ethan. The metal beneath it creaked, but did not break. I am what you made me, Varkir replied, his thoughts resonating with quiet certainty. Your fear shaped me. Your wars defined me. His gaze softened again, returning to the child. But this child, he continued, voice lowering, reminded me of what I was never allowed to be. Ethan looked up and smiled. In that smile, the galaxy saw the truth it had never prepared for. The most terrifying monsters were not born evil. They were simply never given the chance to choose anything else. At last, the human delegation moved. There were no soldiers advancing in formation, no admirals issuing commands, no weapons drawn. Instead, a single woman stepped forward. She wore simple, unadorned clothing, no rank insignia, no ceremonial armor. Her presence did not radiate authority in the way the galaxy understood it. Yet somehow, the room seemed to steady when she approached. Ethan's mother. She crossed the vast chamber without hesitation and knelt beside her son, placing a calm, grounding hand on his shoulder. The gesture was small, intimate, powerful. Several alien delegates flinched. Others leaned forward, captivated by the quiet defiance of it. No species in the galaxy would approach a creature like Varkir without layers of protection. The human woman offered none. We didn't come to threaten anyone, she said gently, her voice carrying through the chamber without amplification. The galaxy has done enough of that already. Her eyes lifted to meet Varkir's massive gaze. There was no challenge in them, no fear, We came because no one else would try to understand. A ripple of disbelief passed through the delegates. Understand a galaxy-ending dragon? The idea bordered on insanity. This was a being whose name alone had erased worlds from star charts. A living disaster, not a misunderstood soul. And yet, Ethan shifted beside her, looking up at the vast dragon looming over them both. "You can protect people instead," he said simply. The words were not a plea. They were an invitation. Varker's wings twitched. The movement sent shockwaves of instinctive terror through the hall. Once that single twitch had preceded planetary annihilation. Fleets had vanished after such a gesture. But this time, nothing followed. The wings stilled. "Protect," Varker repeated, the word resonating through thought space as if it were entirely new. He turned it over slowly, cautiously, like a blade discovered to have another purpose. His massive head rose inch by careful inch. Delegates recoiled, bracing for destruction, but none came. Instead, Varker's gaze swept the chamber. He saw them all, the trembling representatives, the survivors of shattered worlds, the empires that had built themselves on fear of him, a galaxy that had never offered him anything except chains and commands. "Then hear my vow," Varker declared, his voice echoing through the hall and far beyond it. "By the choice this human gave me, by the mercy I was never taught, I will never again be the weapon of fear." The chamber seemed to breathe all at once. "I will stand as humanity's shield." Gasps rippled through the hall like shockwaves. A dragon allied with humans? They would be unstoppable. "This changes everything." Delegates shouted over one another, fear rising faster than any alarm. Strategic projections updated in real time, numbers climbing into impossible ranges. Entire doctrines of galactic balance collapsed in seconds. The Council realized the truth too late. Humanity had not captured the deadliest dragon in the galaxy. They had befriended him. Days later, across every known system, galactic archives began updating their threat assessments. Databases that had not been altered in centuries flickered to life. Warnings were revised, classifications rewritten. Species profile, humans. Military strength, moderate. Technological level, comparable. Strategic risk factor, extreme. Reason: humans demonstrate a statistically unprecedented ability to emotionally bond with entities classified as irreversibly hostile. A final note was appended, highlighted in warning red, flagged for mandatory review by all command-level officials. If humans offer compassion, do not mistake it for weakness. It is how they turn monsters into allies. And somewhere beyond the mapped stars, silhouetted against the endless dark, a dragon once called the Annihilator soared through the void, not as a weapon, not as a terror, but as a guardian, and the galaxy would never feel safe again.